Hey, composing gloves here, and today we're going to be talking about melodies and rhythms that cross bar lines, beats, things that generally aren't crossed. And it creates a very, very good sense of momentum in a track. It can make something sound a lot more dynamic. Now, I sort of went a little crazy on this one and just like crossed things all over the place. But what I have here is I have a chord progression, da da da. Then I have the same chord progression 3 times. So it just repeats 1, 2, 3. And up here I have a melody. And in this case, the melody does not cross the bar line. It is a normal melody. Then over here, we come over here and there are things crossing bar lines, beats. Well, when I say bar line in this, I keep saying it, I mean a beat, just something that's generally not crossed. So like, for example, here, look at this. This crosses a beat. That's like an unusual thing to do. And then over here, this one crosses another beat because it's been offset. But then we land back on it by this little subdivision thing here. And so over here, this crosses. This one does cross a bar line. And that's weird too. And so we're doing all this sort of weird stuff. So first, let's go ahead and listen to the chord progression. Cool, right? Now let's listen to the melody that I put on top of that chord progression. And here I just sort of wrote something in. I wasn't like paying any special attention to rules. And let's go ahead and make these chords softer. Okay, cool. So you see, that's a lot more compelling because it's like, whoa, what just happened? So here, nothing shocking. We have things that are just going down, na. It's a very, very simple melody. Over here, it's very not simple. So let's go ahead and listen to this one in comparison to that one. See how it's like, I haven't like quite lost you. This is pretty crazy too, because every single chance I had to sort of draw something over that I thought would be an okay thing I could get away with, I sort of did it. You wouldn't necessarily do that. You do something in between. Now let's play one right after the other. It sounds a lot more okay after this because we've just heard something that's pretty conventional. Everything happened as expected. Over here, things are sort of moving around. It's not quite as expected. Now, of course, I'm not utilizing rests either. Rests could be a very, very dynamic, large part of this. We're just looking at the ability to just drag things across. So when you add in rests and stuff, you can really create moments where it's like, whoa, what just happened? If you use these two techniques together. So what we have is we see that it's the exact same melody. So I just copied and pasted. So I just boom, boom. And then I just dragged this out. I started moving things over. And then I added a couple notes. Something that should be noted when we're doing something like this is things can get a little more complex a little more quickly. So for example, the thing, I'm not going to get super into it, but if you go into my MIDI music theory in the 80s, the video 80 down to like 70 something, I have videos that talk about conventions of melody and like good melodic writing and melodic tools. And I didn't pay like super close attention to them here, but after you write enough music, you sort of instinctively follow a couple of those principles. And you also know when you can break them, when it'd be cool to deviate from the well-worn path. So here, we need to just be aware that when we are bringing stuff over the bar line, we're creating a syncopation that shifts where the beat can land. That's one reason why it's more interesting. It's a rhythmic tool, but also harmonically, we have an F and an F, right? This F is a chord tone, so it's totally okay that it carries over. But this is sort of on an unusual beat, but it's also a chord tone, so it really jives. If it were not a chord tone, it would not jive, and the degree to which it wasn't a chord tone would change things. For example, if this was like on an F chord, if we had like a G, that would just sound like, oh, it's an F add 2 chord. And that would be okay. It would be more okay than adding like a tritone into it, because then it sounds kind of like what's going on here. That's not even in the scale. So in the major scale. So yeah, that is just the way that you just need to be aware of that. So when you're doing stuff like this, you can make something rhythmically more interesting, but harmonically way more dense and complex to the point where it's not enjoyable to listen to. For example, this D. This is a 6 and in the key of F. So at this one moment, it becomes an F add 6, but it's not on a strong beat. And because we have subdivided here, the emphasis gets thrown into this G. Well, this G is the 2. So now it sounds like a 2, then it goes to a 6. So you see, it just gets, it's just, yeah. So more complex is basically the moral of the story. It gets more complex. You just need to be aware of that when you're doing stuff like this. But don't just stick to chord tones. And you can also use things like passing tones and stuff. So and escape tones and appoggiaturas and all that wonderful melodic stuff. But here, we're just simply dragging things across the bar line to make it more interesting. So let's go ahead and get rid of this and copy and paste this. And let's do it. Let's do it. I want to do it with you. Let's go ahead and make it happen. Cool. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and drag this over the beat. So I've said bar line, I'm sorry. But anyways, it's the beat. So we're dragging over the beat. So now it's like, oh, wow. So before it was this. Now it's this. And I don't like that sort of sudden thing. So I'm going to, I'm going to do this. I'm going to drag this down over here and move that over and drag this out. So now we're crossing just all over the place. So that was what I wrote the first time. I really like that as a thing. Next, let's do something over here. So let's look for a good opportunity to sort of drag something across. 2 chord voices would probably be wise to pick. So we could do something like, or it'd be cool to drag one across and then use the other one to rush to another beat. So that's kind of cool. Next, we will do one over here. And of course, we're not really utilizing rests. So let's go ahead and use one. Nope, that sounds weird. And at the end, I'm not gonna mess with the end phrase because that's gonna like put us back into whatever's coming next. So if you're going to do some more, melodic stuff, you can mess with the end phrase more, make it a little more unstable so that it's more easily able to transition into something else. But this, I don't know, maybe I'm going to go back into a conventional thing like this. So we took what was this, and of course, it's just really fast, sort of like just dragging notes out example. And so you may even consider changing the notes. You begin to decide to do different things. So this C and this A sound a little interesting, but I'm not going to fret about it for now. I'm not going to change anything around. I just wanted to show you the power that you have here. And a lot of people will use this. Alan Walker, I believe, is someone that uses this quite a bit in their melodies. And he has a lot of rests going on as well, which is one reason why they sort of work out the way they do. They're also spaced out, and it depends on the meter. It's all done in context of whatever it is you're doing. Here we're working a pretty standardized situation, something that's not like too crazy, just really simple so that we can make some observations about like, well, look at this kind of generates interest. Then you spice in that little bit of knowledge in your music when it is appropriate. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe, support me on Patreon, and have a blessed day.